I'm Sophie Miller, the Democracy Advisor. I will pass to our panelists to elect the chair.
I'd like to nominate Councillor Bartlett.
I'll second the nomination.
Perfect. I'll pass over to Councillor Bartlett.
Right, thank you very much. So we're here today for the hearing of an appeal against the classification for a dog as menacing. We've got Imogen Grice here today, the owner of the dog in question, and we've got our dog control people, staff, council. We've checked the meeting's recorded. That's okay. It'll be, this public part of the meeting will be recorded and available online after the event. We'll most likely, at the conclusion of the presentation of the evidence, if any questions, we'll go into a public excluded deliberation amongst the three of us to determine or deliberate what we might arrive at as a result of the hearing. So, first thing, any declarations of conflicts of interest among us?
No.
No, me either. We've got an agenda which we've seen published. Information officer's report and all the other evidence on it. We'll confirm that the agenda be, well, we'll resolve that the agenda be confirmed without additional alteration. I'll move that. We have a second.
I'll second.
And then the first item on the agenda is the reporting officer summary. So we've got, who have we got actually?
I'm Hannah, Senior Animal Control Officer.
Great. I'll hand over to you to present your report.
I'm Carrie, Manager of Animal Control.
Great.
We know who's in the room.
So we'll hand over to you, Hannah, to present the report.
Thank you. So today the hearing will address the objection regarding the menacing classification of Lucy. Lucy was roaming when she bit another dog, which required veterinary treatment. The outcome of this incident has led to the missing classification of Lucy. Under section 33B, the owner has the right to object to the classification within 14 days. This hearing provides the owner with a chance to express their perspective before the panel. The panel can then evaluate the evidence that formed the classification, assess the owner's preventative measures against potential threats, and consider any other relevant matters. And the panel may either uphold or choose to rescind the classification based on their assessment.
Great, thank you. Now, do we have any questions?
Yeah, thanks. Just through the chair, not being a dog owner, but in reading the report and what potentially transpired is door left open, dog gets out. The attack was the throat. So is that normal, or, I mean, I don't know, dogs in nature, I guess they vary from breed to breed, but for a dog to come out after a door was left open, then one of its movements is an attack of the throat. How's that viewed?
I don't, a dog attack can occur with multiple different parts of the body.
Yeah, correct.
It's not often we see them at the throat. We haven't had that many that we've been dealing with at the throat. Is it common? It possibly is. It's a natural instinct of a dog, if they're going into that attack mode, to go for the most vulnerable place of a dog. But I couldn't tell you for a fact that that's a common occurrence. I can only tell you what we see on a daily basis, but it's not very common that we see it on the throat. Yeah.
Not common. Thank you.
Thank you, through the chair, if I may. I just note in Ms. Smith's application for the appeal that one of the reasons was looking for sufficient information to what determined Lucy's menacing charge, and that although information was requested viewing the evidence, can you explain to me, how does the process take place? Is it the phone call interviews that we've seen? Is that information provided?
Yep, sure. So, the Imogen has received the same information you have seen, but that can't be done until there's a lot of privacy reasons why we can't hand out information generally. So a lot of that stuff is withheld for privacy reasons when there's a form or something like that with information. But once details are redacted out of it, it can be passed on, which has happened in this case.
So Imogen, saying the same information that we've had with the redactions, but still is the evidence through. Thank you.
Was that information available before the menacing? That wouldn't have been available before the charge was made, was it, all the classification? No. So you only really get it. Well, that's my other question actually. Do you get it once the classification's been made, or only when you've made an appeal?
Generally only on an appeal, because it's part of evidence that's being put forward, so it's not part of a publicly available document, if that makes sense. It's council's evidence, and the evidence as a bundle goes to the panel as to help them make the decision. And to be fair, you've then got to pass it on to the dog owner as well. So it generally isn't given out unless you're in this kind of a situation.
Okay.
So the dog owners also had this, all parties have now seen all information or not?
No, so only the parties that are involved in this hearing will have received this information.
And the owner of the victim dog, they don't become involved in the appeal hearing at all? No, they're not invited to attend or anything?
This is a hearing purely for the dog owner to put forward their case.
Okay.
And that's part of why our report is there, is to try and give that balance of information or evidence there for the panel.
Okay. Any more questions, Lisa?
I could actually probably just elaborate on that a little bit, that we have had a conversation with the dog owner today to let her know that there has been a hearing, or there is a hearing taking place today.
Right.
And just to kind of get her feeling for what if this is to, you know, what if we come to any outcomes. She is a little bit nervous. She's a little bit worried that that, you know, if this was to be rescinded, that, you know, she's worried about the safety of her and her dog out the community following this. Of course, there's no obviously decision till well after this, but that is her concern. She has those real concerns for safety if this was to be rescinded.
But a more general question. I know there's some screenshots of the information. I guess it's information that the council holds on all the dogs in the district when they're registered. Gives some information about, you know, the name and the type of dog and or the breed and the date or when they were born. I've got a question just about how is the, you know, where it's listing the predominant breed of the dog, how is that determined? Is that from some sort of certification, or is it just how it's registered, how they register?
Yeah, that would be determined at the time the owner registers the dog. So they would tell us that predominant breed, that would then go on the system. So we don't have any vet verification or anything like that. It's predominantly from what the owner then tells us.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I guess the Dog Control Act is very limited in how it treats incidents like this. So I think what you've said previously is that when there's an incident, you have to take some sort of action. And the actions that you can take under the Dog Control Act doesn't give you very many options as to what action you can take.
Yeah, so when the officers believe there is a risk to the community, that's when it triggers that need for a menacing classification, which is what has happened in this case. Yeah.
And the menacing classification is the first step on the range of
classifications.
a short range of classifications. So it goes from menacing, the next step is dangerous, is that right?
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. Right. Yeah, so then obviously after that process has been worked through with classification by the dog control officers, then there's the opportunity for an appeal, which is had to be done within 14 days, which you've taken that opportunity and it's come to this hearing. To arrive at the, just clarifying the process for myself, to arrive at the classification in the first place, you've applied one section of the Act. When it comes to a hearing, the hearing panel has a different chapter or a different section of the Act to consider in terms of what it can consider in terms of whether to uphold or rescind the classification. So That's my understanding of it.
Correct. Did you want us to provide a little bit more detail around that, or are you
Do you
comfortable
want
with?
to? Yeah.
So I might cover off the first part if you want to cover off the second part around what is in what the panel can consider. So when an attack comes across the animal control table, they have to take into account all the facts. Each case is a case by case situation. So they need to gather all the evidence, weigh up that evidence, weigh up the risk, prior incidents, all that kind of thing, to get to some sort of a decision of what level of enforcement needs to be taken. We take that into account with our enforcement strategy, which is education through enforcement, but weighing up the needs for the Dog Control Act as well. As I said before, when the officers believe there's a risk to or a threat to the community, dogs, people, animals, stock, whatever, that's when that triggers that menacing classification. And then, so those are the kinds of things we look at as the legislation, is what we base our classification on. And then Hannah might cover off what the panel can consider when they are considering an objection to a classification.
Okay.
So you would, I guess, the panel would be evaluating the evidence that formed this. So all of our officer report that we've put together, the preventative measures that the owner has taken so far to stop this from happening again, and then any other relevant matters that has, yeah.
Good question, Lisa.
Thank you. Through the chair, just sort of another one. I note that there's not a lot of action that actually enables even keeping the classification means Lucy would have to wear a muzzle. And this instance came about through her getting out of the door. Is there, if we see action taken around containment and things like that, is there other considerations we can give? Can you talk me through that? Because a muzzle's not going to stop a dog running out of the door, so it just seems our remedy.
Yeah, and I guess we can probably explain a little bit of our thinking as well. With if it was a low level incident and it was a case of just escaping out of the property, we can consider things like an infringement as a bit of a educational tool to then encourage the person to take some controls to fix those kinds of things. But when it gets to that worry of the threat to other people and animals, that's when that classification becomes really important. A muzzle is the only way that you can stop a dog attacking another animal. There's a lot of people think that these muzzles, these horrible tools, are a fantastic tool, that your dog cannot attack another animal or person while it's wearing a muzzle. And they're a fabulous tool to be able to use to prevent that in the future. It gives the dog owner confidence to be able to walk out the community without worrying that their dog is going to go and do something. So it is the only way that you can prevent an actual attack occurring. And I think that in this instance, the roaming has been part of the cause, but the dog has still attacked while it has been out. So that concern of the attack is still there amongst the community, whether that dog is at home and able to escape, whether it's out in the park playing, that concern's there.
It's a dog's at home that doesn't have to wear a muzzle under a menacing classification, so it could still make a bolt for the door, and we may not actually solve this situation.
Yep, that's
Lucy
there is
been
that
with
risk.
us at the time.
You just through the chair, I guess there's always the unknown with dogs, isn't there? My experience here on council, quite often it is that scenario of a nice dog, never done anything wrong, gets out or gets loose or somehow ends up in a situation that, well, didn't know that. I guess, yeah, it's just an observation that unknown could be unknown from even the owner might be not aware until something happens with that triggers.
Correct. Yep. All dogs have the ability to bite, whether it's a small lap dog, right through to your big dogs. Every dog has the ability to bite. That is what they are bred, or it's in their instincts to do that. It's just what triggers their, their push past that mark, to trigger that response of needing to fight or flight, or attack. So, every dog has that ability, to do that. And if we had a very low incident, a case of a very small nip where there was no puncture wounds, things like that, there's an opportunity to educate, initial infringement, those kinds of things, use those tools on the enforcement strategy that are at the lower end. When we get to a serious incident and there is that risk or threat to the public or other animals, that's when we've got to take that step into that menacing classification.
So I don't know whether Hannah is involved. Yeah, what might cause that? I guess you've got all sorts of scenarios that have played out.
Yeah, it varies dog to
Yeah,
dog.
yeah.
Could be anything.
And what triggers it this time might not be what triggers it next time, or it may be happening again, but it can, all dogs have the ability to trigger that response.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Just one more question. So in the report, it talks about the dog's tooth was stuck in the halter of the victim dog. Do you have any more information about how it was stuck? Was it stuck on something, or when it actually gone through the leather or something?
I believe it was just caught.
Right.
Yeah. So I think it was actually caught on there.
So then it sort of
Had to-
restricted its ability to,
Yeah.
for them to be separated.
Yeah. I think it was trying to be pried off as well. So
Okay. No other questions at this
Not
stage
from
of the
me.
officers?
Thank you.
No.
Thank you.
So now we move on to the appellant, Imogen Grice. Thank you very much for coming today. And I know it must be hard sitting there. I know these hearings, you only have to sit and listen to or we have this conversation, but now it's your chance to have a
All
conversation.
valid questions, so I'm glad you asked them, thank
Right.
you.
Right. So, so now's your opportunity to present whatever evidence you've got to
Yeah.
present. Yeah.
All fantastic questions too, by the way, but I just want to, I guess, start off with the triggering thing that you mentioned. That's sort of my main concern here, is that there's no evidence as to how it started. And while, yes, there was damage to another dog, I think when you've worked in the animal industry as long as I have, and I'm sure these ladies as well, it really can be flick of a switch and a dog can react like that. So I guess what I'm trying to say is victim's owner is never going to say that their dog started a fight. And I'm also not saying that too, but without seeing both sides or without seeing what actually happened from the start, I think that's what's really getting in my head, because like you said, this is the one incident she's ever had. She's a stupid dog. She's a very stupid dog, but not an aggressive dog. And so I'm just, it rattles me to hear that she has done something like this, because she's never been an attacker. She's always been the victim. Like anytime there's ever been a scuffle or she's annoyed a dog too much because she can't stop playing with it, she's always been the victim. And I just can't wrap my head around her actually attacking. So that's why when my mother-in-law did say that her tooth was stuck in the harness of Rue, and so the victim's dog, and that she was wagging her tail when she pulled her and walked over, I can't see it being what it was, but then, I wasn't there, so I guess it is what it is. Another thing is just, another question that you brought up is just, it's not one size fits all in these, like you said, there's the steps that you have to follow for the code, and I do understand that, but I was hoping by showing that I'm not just some person whose dog got out and, due to my negligence and attacked another dog and, whatever, I don't care what the council has to say. I've gone to training. I've tried to get her evaluated to figure out what's going on, and he can't really see any problem, which is, I wasn't there, so you never know how a dog's going to act, and also that the fact that the door was open was a freak accident. The door was faulty itself, and we'd had two incidents after that where we shut the door and it's rebounded straight back. The bottom of the door had come loose. We'd figured that out within 7 days, and the door is now fixed and is locked. So there's just no way she will get out again. But saying that, I'm so confident since going to the training that I don't see her being an aggressive dog. And I never have, but I just thought I'm going to be proactive about this. And go and get a second opinion, I guess, on a dog that, someone doesn't know, someone who doesn't see her sleeping on the bed at night or anything like that, and try and figure out what's going on. But again, they can't really see any signs of progression either. So it was just, yeah. The reason why I'm having the hearing is because I requested the information, got denied until the hearing was made. And I'd said to Hannah, you know, I don't want to waste anyone's time. If there is sufficient evidence, I'd love to see it before I have the hearing, but it wasn't, that's not how the protocol works. So I guess that's why we're here today. Because it only got sent a couple of weeks ago, and I'm not going to say no and waste anyone's time again, but also to give my view and evidence that I am trying to be proactive and, you know, bettering her if she allegedly needs bettering.
Just through the chair, I guess what I was talking about before with the officers is that unknown.
Yeah,
And I'm sure, I suspect you're as surprised as anybody.
very surprised. Walked through the door to my mother-in-law, absolutely bawling her eyes out because we just couldn't figure out what had gone wrong. And I walked in the door from work, like, what's happening, you know, thinking that she had been attacked, because I was like, oh no, here we go. Like, you know, she's in hospital, or, you know, the vet or whatever. But to hear the other way around just, yeah, really blew my mind, which is when I made contact with the owner straight away, like within 3 hours of it happening. And she was a bit upset and couldn't really talk to me, but then sort of stepped me through everything that happened. And yeah.
So after everything had sort of settled down, I guess, and you were aware of the situation,
Yeah.
you were probably resigned to the fact. Were you aware that maybe something like this might, once staff were involved, that something like this might be in the window?
I received a phone call about 8 AM the next day, like straight away. So there was not really, it happened the night before, and there was not really any time for anything. Yeah.
So,
Straight away.
information.
Yeah, and that was probably the only thing that took quite a while. It was about 30 days in between that first point of contact to the owner, who was the dog patrol woman that was dealing with my case, to come and see me and get my statement and everything, which was, you know, you're kind of in that lingering, waiting to figure out what's happening and like, where do I go? And, you know, is she aggressive? Should I be taking her out? You know, I wasn't really sure about all that, but I just, you know, 2 days later, we're at a cafe and she hadn't been declared menacing. And there was a fluffy dog there and she started playing with it. So I was just in this, limbo, I guess, of is she, isn't she? And it's so hard, you know, it's like hearing that about your child when you don't have kids. It's really hard to hear that they act one way when you're not there and not another.
Thank you.
Thank you. As a mother with 3 daughters, I hear where you come from, and I've also had 3 dogs at the same time, and I know which ones have given me more grief. But how much training has Lucy had?
I actually went on holidays maybe about 30 days after that, and so we've had 2 training sessions in there. So in the space of, when did this go down? August? Was it?
Yeah,
August, and
yeah.
then I went away, so October to now, pretty well. She's had 2 lessons because they like you to have a couple of weeks, see how you go with something, and then is it working or is it not working, and then we come back again. And the recent training session, we went where there was dogs everywhere and to see how she would react. And we go with his dog as well. From day one, we went with his dog, and yeah, all you could see was pure, like, pent up excitement, nothing aggressive. And that's how she's always been, and that's how I know her to be. That's why this just blows me away.
Have you seen, since she's done the training, have you noticed her behaviour change?
I've noticed a big behaviour change in the way she is on a leash, as in not pulling and things like that. She's really responding to me a lot better. But yeah. And also, sorry, just now she's off leash, and while we're going through this, she has to wear the muzzle. So yeah.
So how was she typically exercised pre the event and after the event? So pre the event, would you have walked her off leash?
Yes. Yeah.
And what was she like when you would walk her off leash and you'd come across her?
She would always run up to it, and she would always, you know, she'd always be a little bit, I guess, staunch, and just always like a bit like this. But once they had a little bum sniff, and the other dog was okay, they'd be okay, like not a problem at all. She's never had a problem. It's when she gets with an older dog and she's constantly bouncing and bouncing and bouncing around and the other dog is like, all right, I've had enough of you, and we'll tell her off. Sometimes she doesn't understand that and we'll keep going and going and going. And that is what I'm saying. She's always been the victim. She's always been the dog that I always say she's like the kid that's screaming at your kid in the park to be friends. And your kid's just like, no, thank you. You're too much.
And so since this, you've been exercising her on
Yep.
lead and with a muzzle,
She doesn't have to be on lead, muzzle only.
so she can
Yeah.
still run.
Yeah,
as long
but
as
it
she's
was,
muzzled.
I was sent something that said on leash and muzzle and then was told that was actually wrong. And so now it's just, yeah.
Yeah.
She's mostly been on leash though anyway, just for the training side of things, because I've been trying to really nail that down.
And the property that you're housed in, is it a fenced property? So it's fully fenced.
In Hanley, so 1.8 metre fences, I think they are.
So now she'd have to get out a door and out a fence. Was that the situation?
She would have to get out 2 sliding doors. Sorry, a sliding door and a normal door. And then if it was the back door, a sliding door and fences.
But that was not the situation when the event happened.
Because the front door, once we shut that, it was just rebounding back open. So I think someone had gone to go get a package, gone, and then she wanted to, shut the door as you do, you don't sit there and make sure it's shut when you're already home. And that's when they'd take themselves for a walk.
King terriers can go from 0 to 200 kilometres at an open door, so I get it, what she said, but around, are there more lines of defence than just one door that they can get out? Or
Now,
just one?
there's the sliding door as well, but that, I assume that was left open because it's just the sliding door to the hallway to the front door, if that makes sense. So you just walk through the front door, sliding door, and then you're in the main house. So I guess there's 2 lines of defence now in each. Yeah. Sorry.
Sorry, through the chair. Has she resented the muzzle? How's she adapted to that?
Yeah, she doesn't love it. It's, having something on your face like that, and we've obviously gone the basket muzzle because that's just seems the most humane way, so they can still pant and everything. Yeah, it doesn't love it, but getting there, just blurring at her face and things like that. But it is what it is. Got to do it. So.
Thank you.
Okay, that's good.
I think you've asked most of the questions, not all of the questions that I was going to. Yeah, are there any other measures you've looked at to put in place, or put in place to, that might have stopped this happening if they'd been in place at the time?
I mean, just because the reason that she got out was that door. As soon as we figured out that had happened, we told the landlord, and the door is now being checked out, and the latches have all been checked, and we're making sure there's 3 of us live in the house, so everything's all shut now, and it's like a top priority, signs on the things. Make sure the door is shut. Yeah.
You have to look at one of the questions.
Oh, okay.
So check how old is Lucy?
She's 7.5.
7.5.
Yeah. And she has severe hip dysplasia, and she's had 2 ACL tears in each knee, so she can barely run, but doesn't stop her from trying.
And you've had it since day one.
She was a puppy sit fail.
All right.
Yes,
What was that, sorry?
a puppy sit fail. I looked after her and her 8 litter mates and mum and dad dog, and ended up going with her.
Right.
Cool. Don't let your kids foster a dog.
Yeah.
So, and does, Miss Lucy, isn't it? She normally live inside the house or in the backyard?
In summer, a little bit outside, but they're mostly inside. They're older couch potatoes. Yeah.
Right. I don't think there's any other questions.
I do.
Oh, you
I
do,
think
go
we've
for
got
it.
a couple ones. I know you've got another dog.
Yes, Milo.
Who's the alpha of the pews?
Yeah, honestly,
Fortunate.
He's older, but he's always been a sook. Yeah, that's why he was out at this time too, but wasn't involved because he's just not. Yeah, but then I would probably say him, to be honest. Just because he's older, yeah, she's more of the wussy, sooky type. I know it sounds silly, but she is. She's always the one that's leaned on him for support, I guess, so, yeah.
Thank you.
So he's about a year older, isn't he? Is that right?
Yeah, he's exactly 1 year older.
Are they related to each other or no?
We say they are, but then. He was a foster fail. I think I learned my lesson.
I might have had another question, but now.
I will just mention, I don't know if it says on there, but I have a dog walking, like a cat walking company as well, and they frequently come with me with no issues.
Oh.
Saying that they've met the dogs numerous times, but yeah.
So you walk other people's dogs?
Yeah.
And take yours with?
Yeah. Yeah, I've got a small group, I only walk 4 at a time
Right.
for handling reasons, so, yeah. Small group, and they just come with.
Yeah, and we've seen some messages in support of you, and
Yeah.
one of those is from Adam, right? Is it, no, Liam?
Yeah,
right?
Liam,
Yeah.
he's the trainer.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's the one you said you've seen a couple of times, and is
Yeah.
that you're carrying on with?
Yes, yeah, will be. And Marla will be going next once we work on Lucy just over the holidays. He'll be going next year.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
He's phenomenal. Best trainer I've ever met.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Is he locally available? It's pretty close to get to.
yeah, he's local.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's just got a good energy, understands dogs very well.
Right. Okay, anything or?
Sorry, I just
Yeah.
want to just ask one question. What made you get in, if I'm allowed to ask, what made you get into a dog walking business?
I worked in shelters when we were back in Australia, and I think I've just always done it on the side as a bit of a hobby because I'm an animal person. I've always loved dogs, especially. And everywhere I've gone, I've started up a little dog walking business, but this has probably been the biggest and the best that it's ever been here because it's just so dog friendly in this place, and the trails that you have, it's just incredible, you know? You don't have to drive 30 minutes to get to a nice off leash trail. So yeah, just always done it.
Thank you.
Okay, is there anything else you think we want to let us know about at this stage?
Probably once I get in the car, but you know. No, thank you.
Have the dogs lived elsewhere? Have you been in Queenstown the whole time?
We've been in Queenstown for 4 years, 3.5 years.
Right.
Yeah, and they were in Australia with us before that.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so you've all got them over
Yeah.
in Australia, yeah.
Yeah.
Very good.
Mhm.
Okay, well, that's very good. Thanks for that. Now we move back to the reporting officers, whether you've got any other closing comments?
Just a couple of points, there has been an increase in similar attacks across New Zealand. These incidents aren't nice for anybody involved, but there is an expectation from the victims that we do take some action and make sure that this doesn't happen to anybody else or to any other animals. So I think that's something we need to keep in mind, that we make, our role is to make sure that this doesn't happen to anybody else. Section 10A report, which is a report that comes through every year, we bring it up to council, which shows some stats on number of dog attacks, those kinds of things, a number of different stats. You know, we get asked regularly on, how can we prevent or reduce those numbers of attacks? Putting these controls in place are a simple way that we can reduce attacks happening in the future. That's what we've got.
Very good. Thank you very much. That actually brings us to the end of the public part of the hearing. So thank you all for being involved and presenting your evidence.
Thank you.
We need
It's
to
given us
resolve.
more time.
We need to resolve at this point to exclude the public. So I will move that we do exclude the public for our deliberations. Right. In favour?
Aye.
Right. So thank you very much, and what we'll